culture, like we kind of never stop. But I've found like the silver lining of sometimes being at home is great, but sometimes being at home means the work doesn't stop. Like the bleed is greater than it was. The boundaries, you know, it's like, wait, it's late, I should have stopped, or it's Saturday and I should stop. Y'all get it. Y'all get it.
Give my regards to Broadway. Remember me to Herald Square. Tell all the gang at 42nd Street that I will soon be there. Whisper of how I'm yearning to mingle with the old-time throng. Give my regards to old Broadway and say that I'll be there ere long.
We're so glad to have you. You were on our list of like, we need to interview Ginger, but let's see where she fits in the calendar. And then when this came up, we're like, perfect timing.
Well, I'm so glad you thought of us, and I'm excited to speak to whatever questions come up, whether it's about the project or just where we are in the world with live theater. You name it, anything goes.
When we saw your play and that you're working with younger actors,
yes,
and you're doing socially distance, which, as we said, we consider that part of the digital theater pantheon, very much so.
Yes.
So what got this project started? Like where did it start and how did we get here?
You got it. Well, hang on tight, because here's a story. Buckle up. Here we go. So I guess this would have probably been our 5th or 6th season where we've established a tour for community engagement in the summertime. So we bring in an apprentice class. And the beauty of that is, we've got amazing talent and the energy level that they bring. It's all contagious. But we bring an apprentice class of, say, 5 to 6 college university students in to make up this company. And what they do for us every summer is they supplement our summer camps as far as teaching artists. They perform in the community engagement tour that goes out. And they also perform in a sit-down, it's been a musical on the Fringe series on the Waldron stage. So like we've done Spring Awakening and 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. Last year it was Next to Normal. So they get that experience of a tour, a put down as far as like in a true theater setting, and they get to work with professionals, and it really rounds it out. And the past 2 seasons, we've even stretched that contract to actually work on our main stage with our young audience musical. So this past summer, it should have been Cinderella, but we've done things like, Shrek and Little Mermaid and things like that. So they flesh out. So it's almost like they have that role reversal where, just to use for storytelling purposes, say for Next to Normal, they were getting to work with, equity professional artists, but still in the show themselves. I mean, some of them carrying the show. And then the flip when working with our young artist on, let's see, last year it would have been, Ginger Words. It was not Cinderella, Little Mermaid, or Shrek would have been a good example. They're actually the professional ones that they're now the role models to our younger artists in our conservatory program. So it's a neat perspective, and I think a really rounded out opportunity they have. And then throughout all of that, 12 should have been a 12-week contract. They're getting master classes on, the business of theater. They're learning about audition techniques. They're leading with things for the reel. They're having Q&As with other professional artists and designers and directors and choreographers within the industry. So I'm really proud of this program. So that's the history. So to fast forward to where we are with Polka Dots. And the full title is Polka Dots, the Cool Kids Musical. And this show, it's geared, and I should say all of our tours are geared towards that elementary age group. And it's really important. We not only take it out into the community, we actually invite entire classes of school systems into our space so they have that experience of not just going to a park or a library to see the show, but to see live theater in a theater and all that experience brings. I mean, it's the decorum, how to act, how to be an audience member, how to respect, how to, all of that, how to still. So I think it's important for young people to experience theater inside theater, inside our walls. But it's equally as important that we push outside of our walls and bring things into the community. So with that said, we had shown Polka Dots, the Cool Kids musical, for the 2020 summer tour. COVID hits in March, and we were in mid-production of our production of Dreamgirls, and that's where the cancellation started for Mill Mountain. We were 2 weeks into Dreamgirls. We, of course, had to pull that one, and then we had to start assessing what are we doing here? Like, how far out can we plan? Is it safe and responsible to do something? Do we know what we're doing yet? And we made the tough calls that, the longer the calendar ticked away, the more and more cancellations and or postponements we started to announce, which then included that summer young audience series. The Polka Dots, the tour was gone, as well as Cinderella, the big main stage musical for the summer. So we were in contact with the artist, of course, and for some reason my gut said, don't cancel Polka Dots. Is there a way that we can salvage this one production? And it's so important because, again, this engagement piece is so important. And to be completely transparent, we had already been awarded a substantial amount of grant money for this piece to happen.
Wow.
Keep grant money unless you finish a product. So I kept thinking, how can we salvage this not only for the community and for the mission of the theater, but also to salvage, the awards that we had already been granted. So we held on to it. We started to think and work with members of our board. We're very lucky and fortunate that we've got some lawyers that sit on our board. We've got medical professionals that sit on our board. We actually brought in some experts who are other doctors that don't serve on our board, but to give us the sound advice of what to do, when to do it, how to do it, what materials and equipment we needed to acquire to make sure that we could do this. All the while reaching out to the writers and the rights and royalty folks with Polkadots to see, because this was a show that the streaming rights were not available. Some of their other shows were, but this one was not when we started all of this. And we reached out to the writer, Douglas Lyons, and he was utmost supportive, and whatever I can do to help you push this project along, I will work with you, I will endorse it. Let's figure out how to make this happen. So the rights and royalties are held with Broadway Licensing, and they are an incredible company that has had to go with, some unfortunate decisions for their own staff. I mean, they've folks, they're working on a skeletal staff. So therefore, there's a lot of work with fewer people making it happen. But our rep, Sarah, I can't sing her praises loud enough. We've never met in person, but I feel like she's part of this team that made this all come together and happen. They could not have been more wonderful in getting us through. We will approve this to be recorded, which was a big step because, again, when we started this project, this title was not one that had the streaming or recording rights. Mm-hmm. For the next several weeks, months, we were communicating with the artists, the creative teams. This is moving forward, but it's going to be moving forward differently. So, through all these conversations and advice and rewriting practices and policies and safety precautions and making sure that we were doing the right thing, I am a big stickler about do the research first and try to run out of the gate versus just doing things in haste and then begging for forgiveness. Not a good practice, and especially during things that could really jeopardize people's health or our reputation. That's the last thing we needed. So here's what we gleaned, and here's what we put to practice to make Polka Dots come to fruition. I mentioned the part about getting permission for recording it. So check, we've gotten that. So now what? We talked to medical professionals and we realized, okay, we are going to COVID test the entire cast, the entire creative team, and the entire Mill Mountain staff. Anybody that could come in contact during the process. So we let everybody know, project moving forward, had, Zoom production meetings and, concept meetings and whatnot. That's easy on Zoom. We all have that in the bag. But when we got everybody physically here in Roanoke, they moved in on a Saturday or Sunday. That next Monday morning, everybody went to the health department and we all got the big brain probe. we got the brain probe COVID test, and then we went back into quarantine. And we waited. It was actually, we were very fortunate that our test results were all back within like 48, 72 hours, which was wonderful. And so we all came back negative that first round, and I'll come back because yes, I use the phrase first round. So we were good to go as far as to start our quarantine. Now within this quarantine, it was a very productive 2-week period of time. We learned music with the music director over Zoom. We did concept and read-throughs. We did character studies and character developments all on Zoom. We had guest speakers join the class by Zoom. Charles and Anita Price, who are some amazing people here in Roanoke Valley, to speak to their experience of growing up here in Roanoke during the segregation years, as far as the Roanoke City school systems. We had Reverend Bill Lee speak to the group, same thing about his experience of growing up as a young boy going through segregation and what that was like and that experience. And we had a lot of really substantial work happen during that quarantine period. And as we all have started to realize, Zoom is convenient, and I don't think it's going away. But there's also some fatigue to it. I mean, there's days that I'm like, I've got 5 Zoom calls in one day, where typically if that was 5 meetings, it's different. But I feel like there's a different level of, I guess there's a little bit of performance on, because we kind of are a little bit more on than if we were just sitting across the table from somebody, having a meeting. I think it's a different level of energy and output that you're giving. So with that said, we were respectful and mindful that we weren't expecting people to have 6 and 7 hour rehearsal days on Zoom. We compacted that into, probably a 3 to 4 hour max. I mean, max, and probably just one day that it rolled into 4 hours. But it was typically like a 3 hour rehearsal day. But what we were accomplishing was very valuable. So I'm going to back up a tiny bit before I get into that round 2. Before the actors came and moved into our actor housing, which we call the Atelier, we're fortunate enough to have a building that is about a block and a half walk from our theater in downtown Roanoke, and we're able to house 32 artists. So we did a deep clean on the rooms that were going to be occupied by the artists, and we did individualize certain things that were typically shared. We purchased, each of them had their own set of flatware and dishes and cups. They were greeted with a laundry basket, as far as I joke, the welcome basket went, a box of chocolates from chocolate paper downtown to a laundry basket full of disinfectants and cleaning supplies. But that's the world we're living in. Welcome basket. It was truly a laundry basket that had rubber gloves, Lysol, hand sanitizer, dishwashing soap, their own individual sets of, plates, glassware, flatware, sponges, put some fun stuff in there. There was some candy for them, things like that. And then we even labeled the kitchen. So everybody had like their own individual refrigerator. They had their own, their showers were labeled, their sinks were labeled, so that we would eliminate as much cross-contamination as we could. Because in this in this actor housing on the second floor, everybody has their own private room. However, it's more like dorm style living, and it's got like, you know, the galley kitchen and the galley bathrooms where there's 4 sinks and 4 showers, but it could be, you know, communal use. So that's where we labeled everything, and you only use your sink, your shower, your fridge, your set of dishes and whatnot. So that's where we went the extra level before they moved in. Now, in actor housing and in quarantine, everybody still wore masks except for when they were in their room with the door closed. So that's where the level we were during that 2 weeks of quarantine. So 10 days after that first round of COVID testing, we went back and got tested again, because what this did was it gave us the window of onboarding, testing everybody, getting results back, moving forward. But then 10 days later gave us the opportunity to have our test results back in that 2 week, 14-day period. So we tested 10 days later, same deal, full staff, full creative team, full cast, got our results back, all negative again, thank goodness. Which gave us the clearance then. We had quarantined for 2 weeks. We'd gone through 2 rounds of COVID testing. We now could treat ourselves as a family unit, is what they did, which meant we could now be in shared space, but that didn't give us like a free pass to everything. We were still in masks and we were still social distancing, but we could have our rehearsals back in the theater. So at Mill Mountain Theater, we've got several amazing spaces. We've got a rehearsal studio. We've got the Waldron Black Box Studio, our theater where in the larger musicals, you know, we can divide and conquer and like have some music rehearsals on the Waldron while we're having dance rehearsals or scene rehearsals up in the studio. But we typically don't move to the main stage, the Trinkle, until, you know, a day before tech. This show, we needed this space to maximize, whether that was the staging experience, whether that was on breaks, we could, you know, all spread out in the house. And the Trinkle was our largest space. So we had all of our rehearsals on the stage so that we could have, you know, maximize that social distancing element. So starting on that 3rd week that they were here, and again, just to remind you that their contracts originally were for 12 weeks with us, and that changed into 4 weeks. But I don't think we could have been any more happy with that cut, that we were doing theater, we were stretching muscles that we didn't know we had, and we were moving forward. So we started the in-person theater or in-person rehearsals, and we did about a week and a day or so of staging, getting the choreography on its feet, because they had learned everything in quarantine in their room, but they hadn't done it with each other and with any, you know, sense of spacing. We had everything ready to go. All the props were finished. All the scenic elements were finished. So it felt like a week-long tech process, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it really wasn't like true tech as far as costumes, but they had everything was finished when they went to their first in-person rehearsal, which was, you know, that saved with time. So we finished that like roughly week and a day or two of getting everything on its feet, and the show was show ready. So we then went into a true tech for about a day, where we added, you know, lights and costume and sound and projections and all of this. And the show was in extreme fantastic condition to walk into the next phase and the final phase of the project, which was the most unknown phase. Because if you think about it, everything we've done up to this point is familiar. It's the same practices, you know, that we always do for every show, but with the heightened element of, you know, safety and precautions. But it was still rehearsal, get on your feet, tech, all that very familiar. The next is filming. Filming, it was not just a one camera wide shot, capture the show, we're done. We really wanted to approach this as a multi-camera, multi-look, go in for close-ups to point, you know, point up certain moments of the show. So this was a lot. This was a lot. So there was that learning curve for us, but we were still ready. We had acquired the better equipment. We had brought in Richard Maddox, who does a lot of our archival footage for, you know, the media cuts and whatnot. He came in and brought in his equipment, what gave us the capabilities to have the multiple angles, and his expertise on helping us figure out, you know, how do we keep the camera from dancing and fighting and competing against the projections and all of these things that were new. And also it was interesting, this show never had an audience. It never had an audience. It was all captured just within the, you know, in-house group. So, so through that, we realized we set up a very large television screen as our monitor, because you're watching the live performance, but you need to pay attention to that monitor because that's your product. It's what you're putting on the screen. And it was that thing of where colors might have been beautiful and working perfectly on stage, and you'd look at the monitor and go, where's the color? Like everything looked washed out. I mean, it was just like, so we were having to adjust and realize we've got to almost uber saturate. And especially like with makeup, even from say 25 rows back in a theater, the makeup looked fine. Look at the screen, and again, it was like completely washed out. So the actors were feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm putting on so much, but it was to read well for the camera versus the stage. The beauty of this was, though, we never had to do like a clean take as far as 1 hour. And again, this is a tour for, you know, elementary age group folks, or a show, I shouldn't say a tour. It's not a tour anymore, but the show, so it's not a long show as far as content, but had the beauty of if there would have been, say, like a quick change, we of stopping, taking care of the change, want some water, want a break? Okay, we'll go back to filming. That was a perk that we found out, that we could tweak and make things that might have been more of a frantic energy in a live production. We had the time in a filmed production. So that was nice to learn. Once we finished, we filmed actually everything in 2 full days. We gave ourselves 3. And on that final day, it was a compressed day because we knew that we had captured things that we thought, but that we needed. We left that 3rd day to handle things like, you know, the bows. We knew we'd have to have a credit roll. We knew we would need like a promotional video montage. There were a couple of things where it was like, you know, just in case, let's get just the opening of that scene one more time. And that's what we used for that 3rd day. We wrapped up. And it was weird. We literally said, that's a wrap, because the project was finished. And the bittersweet moment was all of the work, all that we had learned through this process, to not have, like, cross the finish line with an audience. That was this thing, like, you never heard applause after songs. We left time, so when you're watching, you know, it's natural, we didn't leave like big gaps or anything, but we left like some breaths. So if it's shown in front of a larger group, like with a school or whatnot, then they can react. But that was one of the strangest things for me, to sit and be watching this process, was to hold back and not, like, I wanted to clap after every song. It was like, nope, I can't make a sound. I can't mess up the recording. So that was the bittersweet thing of the whole process. And then we took ice cream to celebrate, and then people hit the road either that afternoon or the very next morning, and they were all back safely in their homes, and that was it. So that was, all of that was crammed into 4 weeks. There's one more piece of this puzzle, and then I'm more than happy to answer questions.
No, I love this.
Runaway train right now. So, you know, as much work that happened and as many discoveries that happened for us in that 4-week period of time, I keep saying the giant lift started after everybody went home. The editing process started. So we allowed ourselves 2 weeks for editing, and we are using every single minute. We actually, our deadline is today. I don't know if I'm messing up a timestamp as far as your recording or your blog, but it's September the 11th, and our deadline is end of day today to have all of our materials uploaded with Broadway On Demand so that they can do the quick turnaround, because we do launch a release next Tuesday on the 15th. Christopher Castano, who also directed and choreographed the show for us, he's doing the editing for us. It's like he's got that brain, he's got that energy. He's teaching himself a lot on the spot, but he's doing an incredible job. And it's the sound quality, the visual quality, it's top notch. And I can't wait to share it with everybody. It's taken 2 weeks. I mean, he had, I think he told me it was like we filled up this is going to show my lack of technology, but a terabyte. We filled up a terabyte of material for his filming. That's a lot of material. So, so he will finish this afternoon, and off it goes to Broadway On Demand. And we launch next Tuesday, September 15th.
Hey guys, if you like what we just did, there's going to be plenty more coming up. Please like, comment, subscribe. Our Venmo is in the description. Please support us if you can. Our cats need the money.